Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Kris Rudeegraap. Kris is the co-founder and CEO of Sendoso, the leading sending platform. Kris has more than a decade of sales experience and has spent time at Talkdesk, Yapstone, and Piqora. During that time, he discovered that creating meaningful engagements through direct mail and gifting was an effective way to drive demand and increase sales, which helped inspire the idea for Sendoso. Kris is a California native and CSU-Chico alum currently residing in the Bay Area. So without further delay, plug your earphones in, sit back, and let's jump right into this conversation with Kris. Welcome, Kris.
Thank you so much, Anika. I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Could you share with us a little bit about your journey, a little bit about who you are? Tell us what a leading sending platform is, what's that all about, and just how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So before starting Sendoso, I spent about 10 years in software sales in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And so I was really, trying to break into new accounts, send emails to prospects, and really saw that there was a lot of digital noise, and just like email was a hard channel to be super personalized. Mm-hmm. And so that's really where I decided to start sending out handwritten notes, and I'd send little gifts. I'd send, little packages with like company swag, and all that stuff was really great. It was just super hard to do and very manual and very, time consuming. Mm-hmm. And so I dreamed up this idea of a sending platform where you can click and send a button inside of tools like Salesforce or HubSpot or other tools. And then behind the scenes, it would do all the fulfillment and all the hard work for me. And so that was the original idea. And that's what inspired me to start Sendoso about 5 years ago. And really a sending platform is a couple components. One is it's allows you to send out really anything and everything, corporate gifts, their direct mail, their company swag. There could be flowers, cookies, ice cream, gift cards, digital experiences, you name it, we can send it. There's also team management and budgets. There's integrations, there's fulfillment, all under one platform.
All right. Sounds good. So a big part of what Sendoso does or what you do is sales, right?
Correct. Yeah. That's how I got started. And a lot of our customers are using us for sales. But we also have a good amount of companies using us for post-sales. So customer service, customer success, marketing, and even HR too.
Mm. All right. So what I'd like to find out from you is, could you share with us, just based on your experience and also your business as an entrepreneur and a leader, what are maybe 1, 2, or 3 things that you think salespeople need to do to retain their customers? So I know sales is about getting new customers, but how do you ensure that you retain your existing customers? How do you, have that relationship, the customer relationship management component? Maybe what are 2 to 3 things that you think is critical based on your experience?
Yeah, so I'd say one is, really being human and building rapport and think about it as, not a business to a business, but a business to a human. And how do you build that relationship? 2, I think, is really just getting creative with how you engage folks. So not just using email, but using other means to build that relationship. And I think the 3rd is really leading with empathy and putting yourself in your buyer's shoes, and really encouraging, authenticity and really understanding what the buyer really needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so those are really, really good points. Now, let's say, for example, you're dealing with sales reps that don't know how to exercise empathy. So as a customer service trainer, I have found, based on research and experience, that empathy is not one of those skills that you learn when you're growing up. It's really a skill that you develop as you get older, as you get to understand yourself, as you get to understand emotions in other people. But some people just still are not able to exercise empathy to its fullest extent. What are maybe 1 or 2 things you think that somebody could do to enhance or build on that skill? How can you build on being more empathetic as a human?
Yeah, so I would say one is finding training and learning courses. Mm-hmm. So going out of your way to find ways that you can really learn about how to be more empathetic, and kind of study and learn and kind of take what you've learned and start practicing that. I'd say that's the first thing, is really going out of your way to learn more. And then I think the second is, while people might not be as empathetic in business, I think a lot of people are naturally maybe empathetic in their home life, and like maybe understanding what are those key things that you're doing in kind of your home, non-work life that could be empathetic, and how could you translate that into more business-like environments?
That's a good one. Because it's the same skill, same behavior that you're exercising in a personal environment. So you need to just transfer that into a professional environment so that you can really understand where the other person is coming from.
Exactly.
Amazing. Okay, so a big part of customer experience also, Kris, is understanding that we're in this space now where, we have to be pivoting. I think that was a big word for 2020, and it's definitely come over into 2021. And just being able to be flexible using the different technologies that exist out there to serve our customers. Agility is also something that a lot of organizations are looking to do with their teams. So could you give us maybe some recommendations as how companies can leverage more collaboration software and use it to their advantage? And how can employees be open to adapt to this and be able to succeed, especially if it's something that they're not very comfortable with?
Yeah. So, I think that to your point, one is taking the time to really, time block on your calendar to learn more. I think we live in a world where people work and maybe don't do enough in terms of like education or re-education. So I'd say purposefully putting time on your calendar for learning and development is key. And being cognizant of that, saying, hey, next week I'm going to block 2 hours and I'm going to learn this, or I'm going to practice using this software, which might sound like, how do you have enough time to do that? But I think it's taking that time, and it's almost like taking a step sideways to take 10 steps forward versus kind of always being in an environment where you feel behind. So I would say that is one scenario. I'd say two is just maybe depending on your level of leadership, really just the culture of the company or the executives can be really driving this agility. And so I think it starts at the top, and really if you can demonstrate agility at the top and really make that a key part of your company culture, it can really benefit everybody.
Okay. So leadership is very important. I'm glad you touched on that just now in terms of getting people to really step up to the plate. So you have these teams and, people are, even though they're working from home, I've heard so many complaints where people complain that they're just exhausted, they're burnt out, literally, just between family, depending on what age your kids are, and then just keeping the home in order, and then being on all of these Zoom and Microsoft Team meetings constantly at your computer. But then outside of those meetings, you have the actual work to get done, and it's just a lot. How, as a leader in all of this that's happening, can you ensure that your team is thinking creatively? They're thinking outside of the box. How do you get to inspire them, especially like when you're not in the same physical space with them? How can you really get them motivated and pumped up that they are, excited to come up with new ideas and innovative solutions to make the business move forward?
Yeah, so I would say, it starts with one thing that comes to mind is making sure that you are upfront about a flexible work-life balance. And right now it's just harder than ever to be flexible because you kind of live and work in the same room, so to speak. And so I think it's purposefully making sure people are stepping away, even if it's just a staycation and you're staying home, you just put your laptop away. So we really try to inspire that. We even have a twice a year employee bonus that if you take a vacation or a staycation, we'll give you a $500 bonus each time to spend on that. And so we're kind of paying our employees to take breaks and keep that flexible work-life balance. And so I think that's one area, is making sure you keep your work-life balance strong, so that, you know, it really keeps your mental state in a really good place. Two, I'd say, is like, you know, how do you get creative or have more fun with some of your Zoom meetings? And so we've incorporate things like, you know, Zoom wine tasting and events, or we've done like dinner making class over Zoom. And so we bring in special guests to some of these Zooms and maybe change it up a little bit so it feels a little bit more unique, and adds a little bit of flair. So I think that's an interesting way. And then I think, you know, there's other ways as it relates to just helping getting people out of their comfort zone and maybe connecting people with other teams. So we've tried to institute more of like cross-team collaboration, or getting people involved in, you know, kind of mini, what we call tiger teams or project teams. So that they kind of are, you know, taken away from maybe their normal day-to-day and exposed to new parts of the business where maybe they can bring their new level of creativity.
That's really amazing. So I like the idea of dinner. What was the suggestion you had given? Dinner. You bring in a special guest, and that person would what? Like prepare dinner, and everybody kind of follows along?
Exactly. So we've done like a special chef guest that comes in. There's also, I think we did one where it was like a cheese making class. There's a wine tasting event where you could wine taste virtually. So it makes some of these Zoom meetings just a bit more exciting.
So do you do that in the middle of the day, or is that an additional Zoom meeting that's tacked on to the end of their day?
It could be both. I mean, I think for the wine tasting one, we typically would want that at maybe more like a 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock. And so it's typically still during business hours, but it just says, hey, you know, have some fun with this and kind of meet more of your team and, you know, have some fun. But some other ones could happen during the day too as well. And it's more of a way to kind of think creatively versus just be in the same exact kind of Zoom fatigue.
Yeah, agreed. That's really cool. Very creative, very innovative. And it does stimulate a different parts of the brain, which will definitely help them to not feel like they're doing the same thing over and over, and it gets mundane, and, you know, they just, as you said, don't feel motivated.
Exactly.
All right. Kris, could you share with us maybe what's the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Yeah, I'd say from a collaboration perspective, Slack just like keeps us all collaborating. That is probably the one we couldn't live without. One that I really love is an app called Feedly, and it basically brings together hundreds of different blogs into one app that I enjoy reading. And so it's a great way for me to stay creative and really be immersed in a lot of different contexts of ideas. And I typically wake up and will do some reading in that app, and then I'll typically go to bed and do some reading in it. And it just gives me new perspectives across a myriad of different topics.
What's the name of that app again?
Feedly, Feedly.
Okay, Feedly. Gosh. All right. So we will have the link to that application in the show notes of this episode in case there are any of our listeners that would like to tap into that resource as well. Okay, Kris, can you share with us maybe one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could be a book that you read recently, or maybe something you read a very long time ago, but it still has an impact on you today.
Yeah, so I would say I'm actually a huge podcast listener, and those actually give me the biggest inspiration and impact. And so I am like all in on podcasts. So I would say like a couple podcasts that I'm just obsessed with. So I'd probably say I listen to podcasts maybe daily. I would read books maybe a few times a year. So I'm much more engaged with podcasts, and a couple that I love. One's called Dare to Lead, another's called Acquired, another's called Follow Your Different, and then a classic, another one is How I Built This.
Ah, nice. May I ask what kind of topics they discuss predominantly on those podcasts? Are they more like self-development podcasts, or are they business podcasts?
I would say a bit of both. I mean, part of them are business related, but also like they also include talking to founders at times too, which gives you kind of personal inspiration as well. Mm-hmm. So I think it's part personal inspiration, part business, and then part just kind of interesting topics.
Amazing. All right, Kris, could you share with us maybe what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now? Either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I'm doing is, now that we have close to 400 employees now, one of the things I'm doing is just random meetings with employees. And I just try to, I created this new Slack channel called Ask Kris Anything. And then I meet with 3 to 5 random employees each week. And so that's something that I'm doing just so that I can really understand how we're scaling the business and learn from everybody. And so that's been something that I've been doing recently that I'm really excited to continue.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, so our listeners listen to this podcast and they're pumped up by Sendoso and some of the great suggestions that you gave, especially to reinvigorating their Zoom or Microsoft Teams meetings. Could you tell our listeners where they could find you online if they wanted to connect with you further, or even if they wanted to engage in your sending platform? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, so find me on LinkedIn. You can search for Kris Rudeegraap. You can email me. That's Kris, Kris, at sendoso.com. It's sendoso.com. You can find us on our website at sendoso.com. Yeah, those are probably the best ways to get in touch.
Great. All right, so before we wrap our episode up, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It kind of helps to keep you focused or kind of gets you back on track if you get derailed at any point in time. Do you have one of those?
Yeah, I think I would say that the one that comes to mind that I remember and that I think about often is entrepreneurs spend a few years of their life like most people won't, so they can spend the rest of their life like most people can't. And so I think it kind of hints on that, like, there's tough times for an entrepreneur, but if you make it, your life will be changed forever.
Amazing.
And so, that's one of my favorite quotes. The other one I think is a popular quote by Wayne Gretzky is, you miss every shot you don't take. And I live by that too, of like, you got to take risks, you got to challenge yourself, you got to do stuff and get out there. And so that's also an inspiring quote for me too.
Very nice. All right. Gosh, thanks, Kris. You really shared some amazing nuggets today, some great words of wisdom, and some wonderful suggestions and solutions that I think business owners can definitely put into effect to make their organization that more robust, that more creative and innovative, and just promote a really strong customer service culture built on meaningful interactions. So we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and sharing so much with us this afternoon.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on.
Okay, guys, just want to remind you that you can log on to Facebook and join our private Facebook group. It's called Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. Thank you for listening to Navigating the Customer Experience. If you'd like to connect with us even more, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And of course, feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.